I feel like the banning process is really iffy when it comes to certain people.
Some VTubers get banned for like more than a day just for having a, a risque outfit.
They need like a separate rule for different creators.
I don't agree with how they're handling this.
They have not been handling a lot of their situations, you're right.
But some of the changes also tend to backfire.
Twitch doesn't really tell you everything. This is kind of the stuff that you have to figure out on your own. Coincidentally, they just want to avoid it all, period.
Well, they can't guarantee my safety, So I think I'd rather not.
They were throwing out all the gifts to the VTubers.
Well, will you continue to stream on Twitch?
Either they need to shut it down or
Streaming couldn't be any bigger than it is now. And no, I don't mean streaming services. I'm referring to platforms that allow you to broadcast yourself across the globe, garnering you a following who's always looking forward to your riveting gameplay, your sense of humor, or whatever antics that keeps them tuning in. This isn't for the faint of heart though. It's a huge market nowadays compared to how it was back then. You aren't going to just randomly stream, then suddenly become a hit sensation overnight. It isn't that simple to accomplish. It could take years of dedication and hard work to find yourself in that position. It's a long-term gig that you either stick with as a hobby or find ways to innovate in order to stand out from the rest. This, by all means, isn't a replacement for a regular job, because although some have found a way to make it into a career, your chances of reaching that point are about slim to none. You basically have to sell your soul in order to make it happen, and most people tend to quit before they do. What I found interesting over the years is just how much streaming has changed, since it wasn't always a huge part of the internet compared to how it is now. It used to be mostly just people on webcams messing around, not unlike how many cam sites were at that time. Before Twitch came to rise in prominence, Justin TV was an upcoming streaming site that intended on standing out from your average webcamming site. It set out to essentially do what IRL streaming currently does, but to a less annoying degree, a simpler time before your Johnny Somalis or Ice Poseidons. Because you see, streaming your life wasn't exactly as innovative as you'd think. Believe it or not, the idea of streaming someone's life goes as far back as the 1980s. It all started with a man by the name of Steve Mann, who has quite an extraordinary life that would take a while to explain honestly. What you need to know about Mann is that he's as close to your stereotypical genius as you could get, just like all those cartoons we used to watch. He's got this huge laundry list of inventions that are in use today, but what made him stand out primarily was the fact that he wore a lot of these gadgets on his person, with many news outlets dubbing him the world's first cyborg, since many of them were meant to be wearable for one particular function: live casting. His setup by no means was practical, let's be clear on that. He probably got a lot of weird looks walking into the Canadian equivalent of Publix, but little did anyone know he was making history then and there. He wore wearable computers, cameras, portable Wi-Fi. This was a serious undertaking that wasn't so easily understood at the time, but it was a huge success all things considered, since many would flock to Mann's website to see him broadcast his daily life 24 hours, 7 days a week, for almost 2 decades. I don't even think most IRL streamers are able to even do that nowadays. This was a level of unusual dedication at that time, but it was because of what Mann did that he was able to inspire many to try it themselves, starting their own websites to document their lives in a similar manner, which is where this whole idea of streaming started to slowly take shape. One particular livecaster that took the idea further eventually was Justin Can, who with 4 others started the website Justin TV, mostly to jump onto the bandwagon that Mann had begun. The site started as just another place that kept track of the daily life of someone, that's someone being Can in this case. Because it was such an unusual concept, it did gather enough intrigue from the general public, especially since Can had a setup held together by hopes, dreams, and lots of Python coding. Unlike how many of these other websites only focused on a single person, Justin TV would eventually host another person, iJustine. And not long after that, over 60 plus channels would soon arrive, ultimately changing the trajectory of the website. Once the floodgates were open, you had an assortment of people looking to get their start on the platform, but it would take a while before it would actually become more than just another webcam website, which is pretty much all it had been for a time. You'd have people streaming themselves doing chores at home, talking to viewers about random things, or sometimes just sleeping. It was basically live casting, light edition. There were some who took it a bit further than that, but what was important is just how quickly Justin TV grew in the span of a year back in 2007. Without a doubt, they were onto something that could only get bigger and better in due time. However, they weren't exactly the only website where someone could do this, with StickM being the earliest example of that idea coming into prominence. But I won't be talking about those because they're hardly relevant nowadays in comparison. But you may be wondering exactly how Justin TV and Twitch relate to one another. More importantly, what became of Justin TV if it was such a popular streaming platform to begin begin with? Well, first and foremost, we have to take a look back at what categories were the most popular at the time. You see, they had a rather innovative way of how they'd guide people toward content on the site. It had been a given that since so many people were registered to Justin TV now, not all of them were related to streaming their daily lives. In fact, many people stream for a multitude of purposes. So to keep track of them all, they decided to let those broadcasters pick from a handful of categories to properly label their channels under. One of the more popular categories by far was gaming, which was gaining prominence in terms of wide audience appeal. It had enough traffic that it was necessary to create a spin-off site in response, known more formally as Twitch.tv in 2011. Now, for a few years after that, both Justin TV and Twitch TV had a mutual coexistence under one umbrella, but as time went on, it became clear that Twitch.tv was the more popular platform of the two here, with Justin TV Inc. soon renaming itself to Twitch Interactive in February 2014, with intentions to seemingly go all in with the spin-off instead of continuing to run Justin TV itself. They would eventually close the site that same year shortly after, marking the end of Justin TV as a streaming platform in August. That same month, another player would unexpectedly come into the game: Amazon. With Twitch Interactive being under new ownership now, Twitch TV would soon be renamed to simply Twitch to symbolize this change. Justin Can, the co-founder and person named after Justin TV, would move on to either start or sell companies, including even starting a marketplace for NFTs, interestingly enough, back when that was a thing. The only co-founder to stick around after Amazon's acquisition would be Emmett Shear, who would remain the CEO of Twitch until he resigned from the position in 2023, which would be taken over by current CEO Dan Clancy. Now, I should probably point out that at this point, I don't really have any experience with using Twitch entirely, aside from infrequently using the chat room, despite how I rarely even do that. A lot of what you'll hear today will not just come from hours of my own experience, but also from those creators who have had success of streaming on Twitch specifically. I felt that while I could confidently talk about the topic, it wouldn't be complete without testimonies concerning Twitch itself. So if you're wondering why this video took so long to produce, this is the reason. It took a lot of time and effort to organize this, so I'd appreciate a like, comment, or subscription if you like this kind of content. The algorithm is awful these days, and I encourage you to do that with other creators too, FYI. That all said, here's the people who will be helping me out here today. Introduce yourselves, everyone.
What's your name?
Hi everyone, my name is Admiral Trina. I am a voice actress, sailor of the seas, and of course, a live streamer, VTuber. Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Candy Hearts. I'm your cutesy witchy or not so witchy VTuber. I do a variety of games over on Twitch, such as FPSs like Valorant, Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, and then I do some Minecraft and Repo and Friendslop games on occasion.
I'm Cringing Crisis, or just Crisis for short. I am just your average Fox VTuber. Play a lot of shooter games and a lot of cozy games. Most of the time, I do a lot of events with my community because I really value my community and want to grow that.
So I am Cedu. I've been doing YouTube and Twitch for maybe 3 years now. I mainly do a lot of Minecraft content and occasionally the very shooter or commentary game.
I have been streaming for a while now. I think I started in 2021, so it's been like 4 years, about to be 5 years, and I'm not planning to stop streaming anytime soon. So, you know, I'll be doing this as long as I can.
I've been streaming on Twitch for about 2 years, or be 3 years in 2026.
A little bit over 3 years. Only the last year I've taken Twitch a lot more seriously, but almost 3 years.
I've been on Twitch maybe 2 years now, I think. Not sure.
Remember how I said streaming as a whole has been around for a lot longer than people would think? While it's true that streaming rose to prominence throughout the 2010s steadily, most people didn't technically begin their streaming careers until the pandemic occurred, meaning that many people are still finding their groove and nearly half a decade in. And there hasn't been a decline since then. Becoming a VTuber is probably the easiest and most common way for anyone to get into streaming nowadays. That isn't to say that there aren't folks who stream with their webcams directly on them, or are directly the focus of the stream in general, but it's becoming less and less now since a virtual avatar is easier to pull off. Not to mention, having that sense of privacy involved is quite comforting for those who aren't willing to put themselves out there for the entire world. This is a topic I might discuss a bit more in the near future, with how massive of an industry it's become. But for now, we've got to focus on the platform itself.
Honestly, when it comes to Twitch, it was the platform I was already using most of the time.
Personally, I like the integrations on Twitch because you can have, you can do bits, you can do those Twitch extensions, like, like sound alerts and like things that pop up on the screen. I would really like if YouTube would do that, like if they could add that, which YouTube does have potential for it. I just think they need to work on their live streaming stuff because they're so focused on, of course, their main videos and shorts.
So YouTube will always be the best for like long form and short and like other stuff, but when it comes to streaming, Twitch is the undefeated giant.
Twitch is always something I've always associated with live streaming, and live streaming was something I was very interested in since like 2020 when COVID hit, and I watched a bunch of streamers back then.
Plus, Kick tends to have a little bit of a weird reputation, so that's why I continue to use Twitch for the time being.
What you might find interesting to note is that despite there being plenty of those who stream on YouTube, Twitch as a platform might have better chances of growth compared to it as a whole. Why is that, you might be asking? It all has to do with the way it incentivizes the audience into watching, whether it be recommending similar channels or featuring on the main page from time to time. Not to mention the fun redemptions, your name appearing on a donation, etc. It has a lot going on for it that YouTube only has basic functions for. YouTube did at one point have something akin to a rival, known as YouTube Gaming, but it simply never caught on in the same way, or they just gave up on it. I'm thinking it's both. Yeah, probably both. Not to mention there's been cases of Twitch offering exclusive contracts to certain streamers to prevent them from dual streaming on YouTube as well. So I think in a sense, that's probably why YouTube is somewhat behind in terms of preferred streaming platforms. But I don't think that's a focus in their business at the moment. So for now, I think they're fine with where they rank there.
My thoughts on Twitch is, I feel like, with just like any website, there's always room for improvement, but of course, I can't complain too much with it. I just feel like, they should listen to the people that use Twitch, right? The people who actually stream, the people who are watching Twitch. And I feel like they should take feedback into consideration.
Twitch is probably the best in what we have for live streaming. I wouldn't say it's the best company ever, obviously. It has its issues, but in comparison to a site like Kick, which has a bunch of controversy around that with their creators, and YouTube, which doesn't really have the algorithm for live streaming yet, I'd say Twitch is probably the best, but it still has a lot of work to be done in terms of its algorithms and its own issues.
One of the things I don't trust about Kick is quite honestly just the fact that like the security is so sketchy on that platform.
It's not the most optimal on both experiences as like a user and a content creator.
It really took 2 years of just streaming frequently. I did post to other platforms and used like Twitter and just started networking where I could.
I use Twitter a lot. I've been starting to use TikTok in order to push people onto my Twitch account because unfortunately Twitch doesn't really have a good way of producing just growth organically.
Because a lot of small creators that are trying Twitch, like they just start off with, just streaming, and there's not really any like way to push them out. I feel like the main way to do that is if you have another big platform, and then you tell everybody to come to Twitch in order to make that happen.
My main thing that I've gained a lot of my audience from has been doing events over the years. So like this year I did 2 events, got a bunch of creators involved, and I think that really helped with my growth and how I was able to get to where I'm at this point.
You have to either get lucky when it comes to being put on the front page or showing up on people's For You pages. So it's unfortunate. I just wish the experience on that end was better, or like better for producing growth.
The journey for many creators starts like this. You simply start. As long as you're starting from something, there's always potential to be had. How each person is able to succeed ultimately depends on their personality, what goals they have, and if they're willing to network. It certainly doesn't happen overnight. You may even have to get uncomfortable from time to time, do something that you've never done before, something that will get the attention of those looking for someone to watch. It's always a challenge to maintain an audience. There's no simple formula for how to achieve the results you're looking for, but some do find a way to succeed on Twitch even if the odds are seemingly stacked against them. It also helps that Twitch has been fine-tuning the way that their platform works for those streamers, but sometimes those changes can often be at a detriment depending on how they decide to alter, so even if they take a few steps forward, they can also take 5 steps backward in doing so. That's the natural cycle of how they've been operating, at least. It's certainly a mixed bag when it comes to how any platform tends to handle their streamers or creators. YouTube is certainly no exception when it comes to its own controversial decisions with how it handles things, including allowing everyone's favorite little pain in the ass, AI. Anything that it may deem as breaking guidelines according to whatever is in the database could put someone's career into jeopardy, but it's quite rare for such a permanent decision to transpire on Twitch, unlike YouTube. But I think as we move toward a future where AI is heavily relied upon, it's probably only going to get worse the way I see it. I believe there's some manual review done on the VODs where a said violation may have taken place, so perhaps there's a bit of hope when it comes to that being a factor in preventing the nuclear option from occurring. But it's still a prevalent issue that VTubers currently face on a regular basis, which is why I needed some opinions from those within the community who have witnessed it for themselves.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Oh,
I
think it's too fair.
What did he say?
Because I have not heard of a single permanent ban on Twitch. Like, I mean, I've had friends that have got suspended, but they've, like, got their accounts back eventually. The only way to, like, get permanently banned is if you, like, get an entire fuss made about you. That's, like, the only way, I think, to get banned.
I feel like the banning process is really iffy when it comes to certain people. With the banning process, it should be considered for everybody. Like, you know, no special exceptions. Everybody has to go through the same rules.
I'd say recently with how they've changed a lot of stuff, it's gotten quite worse with the way they like aren't counting viewers or aren't staying consistent with how they're banning creators or not banning creators based on their actions.
But then, you know, some people might get banned for one thing and others not when they do the exact same thing. And that's a big no-no that I feel like that Twitch really needs to work on. But not just Twitch. I feel like a lot of platforms with the same thing.
I unironically joke about this with my chat all the time because I see like super big content creators only get like a slap on the wrist and that's it. I think it was a year ago. Someone that was having relations on stream but like didn't show, but you could tell. They only got banned for a week, I believe. The other person I remember is the butt one, the green screen butt. They only got in trouble, I think, no more than a week. And it was like, yeah, you know, as long as you don't do this, you'll be fine.
Social media in general, like, you know, maybe YouTube too, and X as well, you know, all the social media platforms where people get banned for doing different things, but only some people get banned and the others do not. They really need to make it, you know, straight guidelines. Hey, you break this rule, you know, that means you get banned for that.
I don't think bans mean anything on Twitch. However, on YouTube, if you get banned, it's game over. You're getting reviewed by an AI.
You know, platforms are using AI for everything now when they need real, actual people doing the process instead of a bot trying to, oh, you get banned, but it's not really a bannable offense.
Some VTubers get banned for like more than a day just for having a risque outfit. The justification for how long a ban is has never been consistent on the Twitch board.
Oh, don't get me started on AI. You know how Twitter is. We all know how Twitter is. Something showed up and it wasn't like super lewd or anything. It looked pretty lewd. So they got, I think it was a 3-week ban. I think it was at most like a bite. The only reason they were able to get unbanned was they had to appeal. It was multiple appeals and then a friend of ours whose partner had to come in and kind of help with that. But unfortunately, I feel like if they didn't have a friend that was partnered or / bigger, they probably wouldn't have been able to appeal it.
It's hard to really say why this particular group of streamers are given such a bizarre treatment in the first place, and I don't think anyone can exactly pinpoint what it is that's causing it to happen, where VTubers frequently are targeted for something innocuous, like some risque outfit, for example. I think, again, it might have something to do with the site's AI tool, attempting to find potential violations in order to enforce the rules heavily, without consideration or context. It's understandable that there's lots of streamers to keep track of, and that it's deemed necessary to utilize AI in that manner, but if there's anything that I've realized while speaking with everyone so far, it's definitely an issue that hasn't been addressed or tweaked as a result of attempting to save on costs, which in general is just the direction that many places are going. but it's already had such a negative impact that's seen across the internet that I can't imagine it's realistically something that will remain implemented for long. But for the foreseeable future, it does appear to be another hurdle for those looking to make progress. Though it does seem that even with that happening, folks are succeeding slowly but surely in the wake of these changes.
I'm just affiliate. I No, so they're different. So affiliate is when you can get ad revenue / pay. Partner is when you get a different pay cut.
No, but I want to be. That's my goal right now. I'm doing a partner push just now so I can make Twitch partner.
Yeah, so affiliate, they've changed it since I got it. When I got it, you had to have like 3 consecutive viewers, 50 followers was what it was at the time, and you had to stream like 7 different days.
And then Twitch partner is when you have a viewership of 60 or 70 consistent viewers for X amount of time.
I do think it is worth the effort, and I do think it has been improved quite a bit. The real issue is getting that audience.
Which is really, really hard to do in the first place because a lot of people like, oh, I'm on this platform only. I don't want to download another browser. I don't want to download another app just to watch you, just to see your live streams on Twitch, you know?
I don't really think it's worth the effort to aim for it now. I think maybe back in the day where it had more of a hold over people. It's still like a cool thing to get, but all it really does for you is just add a check mark and like it's kind of just like, oh, you're cool.
They killed all the bots where they just banned every single bot they could find. They also added blockers that just did not count any of the bots that may not have been banned. Unless you send a message in someone's chat, they do not count you as a viewer. This makes it actually harder to get affiliates.
If you're not actively interacting in a chat or doing any redeems, you're not considered a viewer to Twitch at the moment. Lurkers don't count, but they still have to see ads. So you're not really supporting your streamer as you think you are. If you're not in the tab, it doesn't count as well.
People download those extensions where you can see like the actual viewers that are there. And I don't even look at that because it's just discouraging to see.
Dan Clancy recently spoke about it and said like, oh, it's because you guys have ad blockers, and if you have more than 2 tabs open, like, we want you guys to be like active almost, which doesn't help because the majority of the Twitch viewer base tends to be lurkers rather than chatters.
So I didn't realize this when I was asking this question, but there are actually 2 types of programs for streamers on Twitch: affiliate and partner. As you've heard, it's a much simpler process to maintain or earn when you begin your journey on the site. According to the page that talks about the affiliate program, as of the making of this video, you need at least 25 followers minimum, you need to stream 4 hours minimum, stream on 4 different days, and reach an average of 3 viewers on those said 4 days. It's as basic as it gets, unlike becoming a partner, which requires way more effort as you'd imagine. But it's a good option for those who want to get a start, potentially turn that hobby into a part-time job, if you're lucky enough to do so. This will allow you to monetize what you stream on Twitch, which I imagine won't be much at first. But again, it's a unique feature that incentivizes people into continuing to stream on the platform, which is a smart move on Twitch's part to maintain the numbers of those who use their website. That's why so many people prefer Twitch over YouTube. These kind of features are simply non-existent, so it isn't hard to figure out why they're behind, but they really don't seem to mind or want to focus on that aspect. With Shorts being a successful alternative to TikTok especially, live streaming is probably not something they intend to focus on anyways. I think that's intentional on their part, since they can rely on other aspects of the website to improve upon, meaning basically live streaming is at the bottom of the list of importance for YouTube at the moment. For now, it does appear that Twitch has a hold on being the place to stream, much like how YouTube is currently the place to upload videos, and that won't be changing anytime soon. But you know what YouTube has been doing successfully, but Twitch hasn't so far? Hosting a convention without incident or controversy. That's right, we're talking about TwitchCon.
I personally would not go to TwitchCon. I have a lot of friends that go. I personally, it's not my cup of tea, just from what I've seen.
It's been great to see people, you know, being able to like meet up and meet with their IRLs. I have not been to a TwitchCon myself. This year I was actually really upset that I couldn't go to TwitchCon because that was one of my goals.
I have considered going, but the last few times I've heard about it have made me definitely reconsider.
I don't know. Like I've gone to local anime conventions, but maybe my expectations for cons is slightly different. I know a lot of the security is just volunteers, so you don't really know if it's safe for the content creators to have these bodyguards.
Which volunteers, they're not trained properly on like how to like react if something like the Emiru situation happens, and it is very dangerous for them not to allow creators' own security teams to be there.
If someone goes to a facility, okay, the usual expectation is if I assault someone, there's gonna be 20 guys on top of it until help arrives. After he like got shoved away, it looked like they probably penalized the guy too. Like, and then the guy walks away. Like they couldn't even pursue him.
There's no safety. They were saying they weren't allowed to bring in their own like bodyguards. If these bigger content creators that produce revenue for Twitch aren't allowed to bring their own safety, well, they can't guarantee my safety, So I think I'd rather not.
There was creators already concerned about the safety of TwitchCon before the event even had took place. I'm hoping with what's happened already this year that they will have adequate security there for their creators, because that's so important to do. And like even now, like I still see Twitch post about how like them donating money to like a charity for I want to say domestic violence for Emiru. They're just trying to do damage control at this point. I think next year a lot of creators are not going to go just because of what's happened already.
They were throwing out all the gifts to the VTubers. I think like one of them got thrown out because it was allegedly a bomb. There was no implication whatsoever, and plus if there was, it would have probably been caught at the door. I'm assuming they had metal detectors or something.
There's a lot they need to address in order to make it successful. What more could really be said at this point? If you intend on bringing streamers to your event in the near future, it would be wise to consider letting them have a dedicated security team. Technically speaking, you stand to lose nothing in giving a popular streamer the option to do so, especially when it comes to their safety as a whole. But what seems to really be rather confusing is just how they ultimately handled it in the end, with the guy who decided to harass Emiru only getting a slap on the wrist. To my knowledge, I'm not sure if anything else has been done about the incident, aside from a potential police report at most. Perhaps Emiru is preparing a potential lawsuit against the perpetrator. But even with all that said, it does make people want to stay away from any future TwitchCons, and all it would really take is listening to those streamers, learn from those mistakes, make some attempt to do better. But I guess only time will really tell. Dan Clancy, a literal rocket scientist. No, seriously, dude has the credentials, worked at NASA and everything. But that's just scratching the surface of his portfolio, which is how he was able to end up in the position that he's currently in now at Twitch. He also worked at Google as an engineering director, which essentially means he was maintaining and updating the backbone of Google's search products. He also had a brief stint with Nextdoor for a while there, again relating to engineering, but this time as vice president. He'd then go on to becoming vice president of creator and community experience, which I kind of fail to see where the correlation between that and engineering connect. I guess he was just a really good leader. The most notable thing that he did around this time was to make a rather controversial change at that time, going 50-50 instead of the 70-30 for subscription revenue. This was in contrast with how platforms at the time worked, and it made Twitch seem desperate, which it rightfully did. Because you have to remember whose umbrella they're under after all. They did eventually bring back the 70-30 split for a time in 2023, but as with most good things, it didn't last long at all. Yeah, corporate greed. What else is new? That same year was when Dan Clancy became CEO after Emmett Shear, original founder and CEO, decided to step down, thus making Clancy the new replacement for better or worse. I'll let you folks decide on that yourselves. Around that time, a good portion of Twitch's staff was also laid off, over 400 people to be exact, and it hasn't gone much better, with another layoff of 500 people happening the following year. Which is why throughout this video, there's been a huge concern over AI taking over the jobs of many for cost-cutting purposes. Because it isn't just affecting those who use the platform, you've also got those losing their jobs as a result of it, making the user bases suffer as a result of letting something as flawed as AI try to manage all those tasks. So now it all goes back to Dan Clancy. Where exactly does he stand in all this? He's been described as someone whose main philosophy is the product, rather than the creators who make the product what it is, which is why I don't necessarily think he's the right pick, especially if his intentions are to market Twitch as simply another product. And whenever there's a problem ongoing with Twitch, he tends to just say things to appease the crowd, rather than actually attempting to take any meaningful action. That isn't to say he hasn't done good things throughout his 2-year tenure as CEO thus far, like donating to charity or putting VTuber PNGs on a car. But at the moment, there's a lot more negative things to say about Twitch than there are positive. I'm sure you could find someone who thinks everything is fine with Twitch, but come on, there's criticism to be had when your CEO overtly breaks the rules on his own platform. Is it perhaps unfair to say everything about Mr. Clancy makes him unqualified? Probably not. I think every CEO has their own agendas and quotas to meet when it comes to the company as a whole. It's just that unfortunately, very few tend to listen or actually do what's right. And as to where he stands with most people, take a look for yourself. If I seem to present this in a negative light, it isn't really my intention to lean that direction on purpose, but rather a side effect of current leadership. They've done a lot of good and they've done a lot of bad. Some of that bad stuff just seems to overlay, unfortunately. So, well, I leave it to all of you to decide at the end of the day. What's most important of all is what the current streamers have to say. Will they continue to use Twitch? What does the future hold for them? Well, I had to ask, and their answers might surprise you.
I still see Twitch existing. It's definitely still going to be like for me personally, I still think it's going to be like one of the biggest streaming platforms, other than YouTube. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon.
For the time being, yes. I think I mentioned earlier you have to stream on other platforms or just put out content on other platforms in order to grow. But for the time being, definitely Twitch is like my main platform. However, I am planning to experiment with other platforms pretty soon.
That's a hard one. The way I want it to grow. I want it to be successful in 5 to 10 years, but Twitch itself is not very profitable for Amazon, and I'm very concerned about, especially with all of the issues that we're talking about that's been, causing problems for Amazon.
I mean, hopefully, I see them having got their act together. I do see them crushing Kick. I do. And I see them working together with the YouTube to kill Rumble. And both YouTube and Twitch want them gone as a collective.
But it's hard because, again, like this is the main streaming platform that people know. Again, with, trying to convert people to go somewhere else, it's going to be super, super difficult for that to happen.
If Google partnered with Twitch, they could learn a lot of things and actually have access to a lot of issues and in the process, both Kick and Rumble would be crushed, like literally unrecoverable.
Maybe Facebook Live is the real one.
You gotta, in the social media world, you gotta be everywhere because there's gonna be somebody using only one platform and you gotta reach that person. So yeah, 100%, I'll be everywhere.
Twitch is a platform where despite whatever is going on, there's this clear indication that it's still doing well enough, or even if they have a competitor or rival, that preference will remain in their favor. They figured out exactly how to keep people coming back to their website, incentivize streamers to keep using it, and are pretty much a good source of revenue for the companies who advertise on Twitch. Even with TikTok possibly being a contender, or Meta experimenting with live streaming capabilities as well, Twitch will continue to grow in terms of user base size. And now with the rise of VTubers on the platform, there won't be a shortage of aspiring creators either. I think people do want Twitch to succeed, because there's a way to make it into something if someone chooses to aim toward it. It's just that with being under Amazon's thumb, there is a lot of corporate politics behind the scenes that surely interfere with that in some ways. And Dan Clancy being involved certainly raises questions about how viable Twitch will remain for years to come. What I can say is that even if something were to happen, most people are smart enough these days to go beyond Twitch. So if they really want to remain in the position they're in, they have to be willing to listen. Not sometimes, not once in a blue moon. How about we compromise at half the time here? It doesn't have to just be about profits and quotas so that Jeff Bezos can purchase his next super yacht. Think about the people who make your platform what it really is. I met some really cool people along the way, and I wish I could have spoken to more of them. But if you were to take away anything from this video, it's that even when things seem to be looking bad, there's always a chance it'll get better. Twitch has the potential to do something great by taking the feedback of others in consideration. So, if this video somehow reaches anyone at Twitch, except the AI, fuck off buddy, then please listen to your creators. They are the lifeblood of what makes you, you. And I don't just mean the popular ones. Take all thoughts into account, because without them, it is impossible. None of this really is technically. My only hope really is that you, the viewer, decides what to make of Twitch. Is it flourishing? Are we witnessing a total collapse? I think the answer is clear. As for me, well, I could go 50-50 on that, honestly. Anyone want to place any bets on if Amazon shelves it or lets it live another day? Trina? Crisis? Candy? Sea-Doo? Bro? Oh, I guess this is the end of the video now. See you all next time.